Hello, and welcome to a beautiful Canadian summer day. You might be wondering, Jeff, if it's such a beautiful day, why are you dressed like that? And the answer is simple. I live in what scientists refer to as an inhospitable subarctic hellhole. I know it might sound like I'm being melodramatic, but in some parts of the world, Canada, Finland, Texas, the winter can and will kill you. And if it doesn't succeed in killing you, it's just going to do everything it can to irritate the hell out of you. It's cold, it's snowy, it's dark, and where I live, it's 6 months long. So why am I telling you all this? Well, I'm not equipped at all to deal with it. This is my garage.
You chose poorly.
Not exactly the beacon of practicality. Now, could I drive these cars in the winter? Yes. Would it be a ton of fun? Absolutely. But it would also be difficult, stressful, and disastrous for the resale value. So back in the fall, before all this happened, I decided I needed a winter beater. But not just any winter beater. I want to build the ultimate winter beater. Let's start by defining what a winter beater is. It's really simple. It's a cheap car that you don't really care about, that you can bang around in the wintertime, while your nice cars stay comfy and cozy in the garage. A good winter beater needs to be able to handle bad road conditions, survive cold temperatures, and keep the occupants warm/alive for as little money as possible. Realistically, any semi-modern car can be a winter beater. Drive past an elementary school on the ugliest day of the year and you'll find that the music teacher made it there just fine in a 2003 Toyota Echo. However, we're trying to do better than just adequate, so we want something that's a little more naturally suited to the task. Namely, something with four-wheel drive and a bit of ground clearance. You can find a vehicle in pretty much any segment that matches this criteria, so it's best to pick something that you'll be able to find some use for in the summer months as well. Personally, I spend a lot of time hauling around lumber and projects and broken motorcycles, so I wanted a small pickup truck. And it's a no-brainer that if you want a small pickup truck, you get a Toyota Tacoma. So I bought this. This is a '99 Nissan Frontier. It's like a Toyota Tacoma, except that it doesn't say the words Toyota or Tacoma anywhere on it, meaning I was actually able to get a good deal. It's got a V6, an automatic, and selectable four-wheel drive. It's in remarkably good mechanical condition, and at 240,000 kilometers, it's still got plenty of life left in it. The reason I was able to get a good deal on it is because the body's starting to rust out pretty bad, but that's not a concern for me at all. If anything, it was a selling point. The heat in this truck works great, which is literally the most important feature for a winter beater to have, and conveniently, it's a feature that almost every car has. If I wanted to, I could drive this truck as is all winter, but that sounds boring as hell. Let's get this thing back to the driveway and start ruining it. The very first thing I'm doing is some general maintenance. This truck is 25 years old, and the last thing I want is for it to leave me stranded because I didn't properly take care of it. A lot of vehicles will specify different levels of viscosity for the oil, depending on what the temperature is, so it's important to check the manual and figure out what you should be using for cold weather. The manual for this Frontier has its handy little chart here that tells me that basically all across the temperature range, including cold weather, I should be using 5W30, and for gear oil, it is 7590. I'm also going to use a full synthetic for both engine oil and gear oil, just because synthetic is less affected by temperature swings, which means it lubricates better in the cold. The oil in the differential doesn't have a dipstick, so I'd need to crawl underneath to check it, and if I'm crawling underneath anyways, I might as well just change it. This oil actually looked brand new. It probably didn't really need to be changed, which is a good sign. It means somebody was taking care of this truck. I'm not broken up over it. Gear oil is cheap, and now we have the peace of mind of knowing exactly when the oil was changed and exactly what oil was used. Testing the coolant, I can see that the freezing point is around minus 30 degrees Celsius. This is only about 7 degrees above where brand new antifreeze freezes at, so there's no point in flushing the system. This truck will absolutely see overnight temperatures below minus 30, but I have a plan for that. More on that later. The ATF that serves as the fluid for the transmission and transfer case looks nearly brand new, so we won't replace that either. This truck has definitely been taken care of. While we're on the topic of preventing being stranded, this is a good time to check the condition of the spare tire. The tire is in good enough shape, but it's basically flat. The rod that raises and lowers the spare tire from the truck is also missing. I cobbled this one together from some socket extensions and an old Nissan jack tool I had lying around, and I'll stash it in the truck. If we hadn't checked these things, the spare tire would have been completely useless to us on the side of the road, so it's a good thing we looked. See this big dent in the base of this streetlight? Back in 2018, someone who shall remain nameless was having a little bit too much fun on the snowy road and stove the front end in of their BMW E36. This was a huge bummer, and it's a reason we want our vehicle to be able to shrug off some of life's little oopsies. This is a brush guard off a Nissan Xterra of a similar year. With a little modification, it should bolt straight up to our Frontier. In a high-speed crash, it's designed to break away so as not to interfere with the truck's crumple zone, but in a low-speed fender bender, like the kind that happen a lot at icy intersections, this might save us from some front-end damage. I'm not planning on driving around rear-ending people, but sometimes life happens. Apparently the Xterra and Frontier have totally different bumpers, so I need to remove a lot of material to get the brush guard to fit. The nice thing about a beater car is that I feel literally no guilt about doing this. With the brush guard installed, I now have a place to mount this. This is an LED light bar, which is necessary because in the winter, the sun sets at 4 p.m. The light itself mounts up to the brush guard with just 2 bolts. While I do know how to wire up a relay and switch for an accessory light, this one comes with its own wiring harness, so I don't have to. I just need to install a switch somewhere in the cab, mount the relay somewhere accessible, and connect the harness to power and ground. One thing to note is that these are generally not legal for on-road use. I mostly use mine as a work light, and I never shine it through the back window of cars that cut me off. Now that there's some snow on the ground, let's talk about winter tires. Winter tires are, without a doubt, the most important mod you can do for winter driving. More important than ground clearance, more important than drivetrain type. You could daily drive a first-gen Dodge Viper in the winter if you had the right set of winter tires. Some people wouldn't put winter tires on a 4x4 truck like this. They'd say, well, 4x4 gives me all the traction I need, which is true when you're getting going, but it's not true when you're stopping. If you don't want to be out here rear-ending Toyota Siennas, winter tires are the way to go. If I was someone with a production budget, this is the part where I would go and install the most expensive set of winter tires you can buy, but I don't, so I'm not going to. This truck actually had a fairly high-end set of winter tires on it when I bought it, and I didn't have to pay extra because I bought it in June, so we're just going to run these ones. So far, they're working very, very good. This is my block heater cord. It connects to a small heating element inside the engine block that keeps the coolant warm and prevents it from freezing. This is a common feature that comes factory on a lot of cars sold in cold markets, because if your coolant freezes solid, it can crack your block, which you obviously don't want. In terms of things you can do to protect your car from the cold while it's parked, this is a good start, but we can do a lot better. When a car sits out in the cold, its oil gets cold. The colder it gets, the thicker it becomes. If it gets too thick, it won't lubricate as intended, which can cause increased wear on the engine. To prevent this, I'm installing an oil pan heater. This is just a small heating element that attaches to the underside of the oil pan and keeps the oil from getting too cold. The installation is about as easy as it gets, roughly on par with applying a sticker. Another part that's especially susceptible to the cold, maybe more so than any other, is the battery. In cold temperatures, the chemical reactions inside a lead-acid battery slow down and the battery loses charge. If the battery is too weak to meet the demands of the starter, you're stranded. To combat this, I'm installing both a battery blanket and a trickle charger. The battery blanket is just a small heater that wraps around the battery to keep it toasty. The trickle charger keeps the current flowing through the battery to prevent it from discharging. Since I buy and sell a lot of shit boxes, I've amassed somewhat of a collection of these. With these two working in tandem, there's effectively a 0% chance that I'll walk outside in the morning and find that my truck doesn't start. I'm plugging everything into a single extension cord for convenience that gets routed out the front bumper. Now, instead of just one block heater, the truck has 3 heating elements and a battery charger, but still one cable. In retrospect, a 30-foot long blue extension cord was not the right tool for the job here. It's a little conspicuous. So, as you may have figured out, I went a little bit overkill here just for effect. Realistically, any 2 of these mods is enough for your car to survive one very cold night. With all 4 of these things plugged in, the truck is going to be able to survive one very cold month, but it is going to show up on my electricity bill. It's actually not even cold out today. It's a scorching 0 degrees Celsius, so we'll revisit this on an actually cold day and see how all this junk is doing. Okay, it's about minus 20 out right now. The truck's been sitting all night plugged in. For reference, the steel on the brush guard is about minus 20. Okay, the battery is 19 degrees Celsius. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's like sticking your hand in a hand warmer. According to the trickle charger, the battery is completely full. The outside of the radiator is also about 7 degrees. And the oil pan, near but not on the heating pad, is about 10 degrees. So we've definitely managed to keep some temperature in the truck, but what matters is how easy it's going to start up. Yeah, it started absolutely no problem. That's mission accomplished. Now that we've established how to keep the truck warm, it's time to worry about keeping me warm. I'm installing a remote starter. This will allow me to start and warm up the truck without leaving the comfort of my house. So by the time I'm ready to drive, it's nice and toasty. Remote starters are automotive cancer. They're a nest of wires that leaches into every part of a car's electrical system. This installation will be simpler than most, since there's no keyless entry or power windows to hook up, or immobilizer to complicate things. The only thing this fob will do is start the engine. Even with the most bare-bones installation possible, we need to splice all these wires into the truck's electrical system. I won't bore you with the details of what each wire does. If you actually want to know how to hook up a remote starter, there's better tutorials out there by people who aren't idiots. The gist is that the control module uses all these connections to bypass the ignition switch and turn the car on and start it when the button on the remote is pressed. It turns out this truck actually already has a remote starter module in it. I had suspected this might be the case since there's a suspicious aftermarket antenna up by the rearview mirror. The module itself is completely useless to us because we don't have a remote or even know what brand it is, but its wiring harness will come in very handy. Instead of tracking down every single wire I need to tap into under the dash, I can just splice my new remote start harness into the old remote start harness, since it's already integrated into all the important circuits. Through a bit of trial and error with a multimeter, I'm able to determine what each wire in the old harness does and connect it to the corresponding wire in the new harness. A lot of the colors match up, but not all of them. Programming the new unit is as simple as teaching it what the RPM signal looks like when the truck is running. Once everything is confirmed working, all that's left is to install the new antenna and tidy up the wiring as best I can. This last mod is one I'm quite proud of. Any good winter car has heated seats. Most 25-year-old shitboxes aren't that well equipped, but that's not going to stop me from warming my buns. So, in terms of retrofitting an old truck with heated seats, we have a couple different options. The simplest one is just heated seat covers. You place them on top of the seat, plug them into a cigarette lighter, and they will heat your ass. But it's not a particularly elegant solution, and it would be pretty lame for me to make a video about it. Another option is just swapping in heated seats from a vehicle that came with them. This can be a kind of expensive option, and it comes with the problem of sourcing heated seats and then wiring them in, so we're not doing that either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my existing seats and I'm going to convert them to heated seats using these. These are heating elements that you install yourself inside the seat. It's still a little complex as we're going to have to take the covers off the seat and reinstall them, but it gives us the most OEM plus kind of result. This kit is also essentially plug and play. It comes with all the wiring and controls we're going to need. All we have to do is tap into 12 volt switch and ground. Someone's definitely taken these seat covers off before, because everywhere there's supposed to be like actual hardware holding them together, there's just zip ties. And that's perfect because my plan going into it was to just cut all this hardware and replace it with zip ties. The heating pads can be cut down lengthwise to fit the seat. Once they're affixed in place with the adhesive backing, the seat covers can be reinstalled. I'm zip tying mine back on, but if you're a huge nerd, you could do this the factory way with some hog rings and their special pliers. With the seat covers back on, the only thing that betrays my modifications is the two new wiring connections coming from each seat. Just like the light bar, I don't need to do any custom wiring, but I do need to find a spot for the switches. I'm choosing to install mine in this free space just below the transfer case shifter. To get accessory power for the relay, I'm hijacking a cigarette lighter harness that was unused from the factory. For the constant 12 volt, I'm using the same power wire as the light bar. The fuses get tucked up here in the corner of the engine bay with the rest of the fuses and relays for our new accessories. The switches come with an illumination wire that makes them glow blue, but I'm not hooking it up since I think it looks tacky. Once I've confirmed with a multimeter that the plugs that go to the seats are getting correct voltages at each power level, I can put everything back together. Alright, so it's minus 14 outside. Truck's been idling for a few minutes with the door open. The heated seat that's turned on is 12 degrees. And the heated seat that's turned off is basically 0. So they work. And I'm assuming these temperatures will be quite a bit higher with the doors closed, with the climate control on, with somebody sitting in the seat. Lastly, I'm putting together a simple toolkit of things that might come in handy in the winter. First is a set of jumper cables and a tow rope. These are to rescue people who are less prepared than we are. I'm not going to be getting stuck or needing a jump start. A pair of gloves. Use these for anything from pumping gas to having a snowball fight. I don't think I need to explain the gloves. Flashlight since it gets dark at 4 o'clock. An extension cord in case I need to park overnight somewhere that's not home and I want to plug in. Places like hotels or airport parking. Since my truck doesn't have keyless entry, I've also got a bottle of lock de-icer. That doesn't go in the toolkit because the toolkit's going to get locked in the truck. That's going to go in my jacket pocket. Combination snow brush ice scraper. Regardless of how old you are, just steal one of these from your dad. I know for a fact he has 10. Then we just have to throw all this stuff in a bag and throw the bag behind the seat of the truck, and it's there when we need it. This is a typical crappy winter day. Allow me to explain why I'm not worried about it. I've got 4-wheel drive and winter tires, so no matter how much snow falls, I'm not getting stuck. I've got a good heater, heated seats, and a remote starter, so no matter the temperature, I'm not getting cold. I have an obnoxiously bright light bar, so no matter how early the sun sets, I'll be able to see. I've got a block heater, oil pan heater, battery heater, and trickle charger, so no matter how cold the night gets, the truck's going to start tomorrow. And if anything else goes wrong, I've got the tools on board to make it go right again. Overall, I have the peace of mind that you only really get when you've got the ultimate winter beater.